We do begin this Thursday awaiting the arrival of Norway's prime minister to the White House. This visit coming amid renewed tensions in Ukraine today after Russia overnight launched a deadly missile and drone attack on the Ukrainian capital of Kyiv. More than 70 missiles and 150 drones hit mostly residential areas, killing at least 8 people. More than 80 others are hurt, and Ukrainian officials say more victims are likely trapped in the rubble. The attack flies in the face of a high-stakes meeting in Washington, D.C., where the current and former heads of NATO will discuss the future security of Ukraine with top members of Trump's cabinet. President Trump voicing his opinion on the strikes on social media this morning, telling Russia's President Vladimir Putin to stop. That post coming just hours after a much longer post in which the president slammed Ukrainian President Zelensky for getting in the way of a peace deal, telling Zelensky to, quote, get it done. NewsNation's Kelly Myers live at the White House with the very latest on Ukraine, Kelly, and this meeting with Norway's prime minister.
Yeah, hey there, Nichole. So we are waiting for Norway's prime minister to arrive here at the White House. We have a live look at the West Wing as reporters are waiting to see President Trump likely meet with Norway's prime minister there at the door and then bring him back for that one-on-one meeting. We also know that the former NATO Secretary General is also set to be here, someone that the president has a good relationship with and is often considered a Trump whisperer, as they try to push him to see Ukraine's side in this. As you mentioned there, President Trump seems to be putting the onus on Ukraine and Ukrainian President Zelensky to come to the table to agree to this deal more than he is putting the pressure on Russian President Vladimir Putin. It comes as you mentioned that attack overnight, the biggest aerial bombardment of Ukraine's capital of Kyiv this year that we saw. There were 9 people, at least 9 people killed, 70 more injured in Ukraine's capital as the U.S. tries to mediate these talks to end the war. You mentioned President Trump posting on Truth Social, his social media account earlier, saying, quote, I am not happy with the Russian strikes on Kyiv. Not necessary and very bad timing. Vladimir, stop. 5,000 soldiers a week are dying. Let's get the peace deal done. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky is asking to meet with President Trump this weekend when he attends the funeral for Pope Francis in Rome. I asked the president in the Oval Office yesterday if he plans to meet with him. Take a listen.
And on the war in Ukraine, are you going to be meeting with President Zelensky? He's asked to meet with you this weekend. Will you be meeting with him?
I don't know. I don't know that he's going to the funeral or not, but I just hope he gets this thing solved. And I will say that I think Russia is ready, and a lot of people said Russia wanted to go for the whole thing. And I think we have a deal with Russia. We have to get a deal with Zelensky, and I hope that Zelensky, I thought it might be easier to deal with Zelensky. So far, it's been harder.
So this comes as the U.S. continues to have talks with Ukraine and European allies on an end to the war. We expect those to continue. We'll be watching to see if the president does, in fact, take a meeting with Ukraine's president this weekend. And we'll be watching to see what conversations happen today here at the White House between the president and other European allies like Norway's prime minister here, as well as the former NATO Secretary General.
So Kelly, about that, the Secretary General in Washington today to meet with these top cabinet members. What more do we know?
Yeah, so not only the former NATO Secretary General, but the current NATO Secretary General, Rutte. He's also here. He just was at the Pentagon meeting with the Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth. He's set to go over to the State Department here by the White House to meet with the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. Now, they're pushing for the U.S. to see Ukraine's side here. The question over whether Ukraine should give up Crimea, that was the area that was annexed forcefully by Russia in 2014. The U.S. talks right now with Russia would involve that going to Russia and staying with Russia. The NATO secretary and the former NATO secretary want to make sure that Ukraine doesn't give up land here and doesn't make a deal that they don't really believe in. So we're watching for that as well. But Russia, we're seeing so far their response. They've been saying that they see eye to eye with what the U.S. is offering in this deal. So now it's just a matter of where everyone, what everyone can agree to and when exactly that will happen. Nichole.
All right. Kelly Meyer monitoring it all for us there in Washington. Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.